Welcome back to the S.H.E Gallery show. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for being with us, Joey.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we are back for season 4, and this is segment 6 of the S.H.E Gallery show. All of July we spent our time introducing artists from our first performance art fundraiser, Souls Rise. And now we're kicking off August introducing other amazing local artists like Joey T. Herrera. Goes by the name of Joey T, who's a skater, a multidisciplinary artist, and has also tapped into music. So we're going to get a little bit into all of his backgrounds. Please remember that you are also with us live, and you can always contact us at our website, sharinghisenergygallery.net. You can always email us. You can always call us if you're interested in finding out more information about S.H.E Gallery, want to get involved, or want to be on the show. Have an inspiring story to share, just please let us know. We're always around. And you can always join the conversation throughout the segment by calling us at 312-738-1060. So Joey, dun, 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 dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
So you come from a very small hometown. You want to talk to us a little bit about your hometown and how you got to Chicago?
Yeah, so I'm from a very small town on the border of Illinois and Wisconsin. It's called Spring Grove, Illinois. It's claimed to fame as the world's largest corn maze. And it's pretty much, the whole town's a cornfield. There's like a bunch of little houses. They finally got a McDonald's like a few years ago. That was a big deal. But my dad grew up in Lakeview in the 60s or whatever. So he's a Chicago boy. So he always brought me down to the city. So I just have been in love with the city since like a young age. Didn't grow up here, but was here every weekend visiting. And then when I was old enough, couldn't wait to get out of that small town and get to the city. So was just always like drawn to Chicago.
And when was that? When did you get to the city, like to actually stay here and live here?
I moved here 4 years ago.
So it has not been that long?
It hasn't been that long, no.
But
no.
It's been an experience, and you've really, really, really taken the city and made it yours.
Yeah, I've had a really good time. I feel like I got pretty lucky. I caught a few lucky. I just met some really cool people, and it kind of, I don't know, it's not a big leap of faith, but anytime you move and you know you want to do something, you're like, I don't know if it's going to work out. But to me, it seems like, the universe kind of comes and backs you up, or it has for me. I kind of went out and tried to do what I wanted to do, and things just kind of fell into place, it seemed like.
What was it like for you moving out of like a small hometown? Were your parents afraid, or what was it like with your friends and your family? It's like you're moving kind of like to a completely different world from a place that's like the famous the corn maze, and you come here and you're
right.
like...
Well, I mean, I think, everyone, it's not far from Chicago. It's like an hour and 15-minute drive, so to me, it was like not moving that far away, but I mean, an hour might as well be a few hours, because it's like I don't get home still as often. I still don't get home that often, but I don't know. My friends and family I think they were kind of excited for me / confused, or some of them. I want to say that everyone was supportive, but I don't think everyone necessarily understood what I was trying to do, or why do you want to move? How are you going to, I don't know. I saved up a bunch of money from the job I was working at, and then I kind of moved to Chicago with no job, and they're like, what are you going to do? How are you going to, I'm like, don't worry, I'll figure it out. And then I figured it out, and now, they're like, yeah, you did it. So, but I think at the time people were, maybe some of my family members were probably a little worried, but...
Mm-hmm. But you came and you're doing what you love.
Yeah, no, and that's all I really wanted to do out of it, and be somewhere that inspires me. Like the corn maze is inspiring a little bit, but anywhere when you're there your whole life, after a while, it loses that. I still love to go home. I'm going home this weekend. I'm excited because I haven't been back in a few months, so it'll be nice. But Chicago, to me, I just love. There's inspiration on every corner. Like you're never gonna see everything the city has to offer, even if you live here the rest of your life. So.
And how long have you been an artist? How long have you been making art?
Well, like as a kid, I always did art. I remember being like a 5-year-old and always like drawing stuff, and I remember, funny enough, was like a perfectionist as a little kid. Like I would draw something and I'd be like, it isn't good enough, and I'd crumble up the paper and throw it out and start over. I just have a memory doing that. But then in high school, I wasn't like too into art. I didn't really take a lot of art classes. I didn't even really think about art in college, and I was just always in the background or something. And my mom was like, well, I told her I didn't know what I wanted to do. And she's like, well, why don't you look at graphic design? You're creative. You like art stuff, right? And I was like, sure. So I took some graphic design classes in college, and then, found Photoshop and, fell in love with Photoshop. And that's pretty much what I make all my art in. It kind of evolved from there.
You want to take a look at some of your work? Let's take a look at some of your work. So here we have, oops. Getting
nice
real
zoom
close.
in,
And that's actually really neat because we do get a really close zoom.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail in there.
So these are photographs, or how do you make your collages? These are collages?
Yeah, so these are collages. So like I said, Photoshop, I make everything in Photoshop first. And usually it's with all my own photos. This piece, they're not my own photos. So this is actually, it's actually a famous skateboard photo. It's not Darth Vader skateboarding originally. It's a professional skateboarder, Kevin Spanky Long. I think that's his name. Yeah. I took that picture in Photoshop, and then I found a Darth Vader mask and just kind of built it all in Photoshop.
And what is this? What's going on here? Is this part of Chicago?
So this is actually in New York.
Cultural Center?
No, this is actually
New. Like it?
Yeah, it looks similar. This is New York City technically. Like this black, what a skateboarder would call a hubba. And so if you look, his skateboard's upside down. So that trick's called dark slide. So that's why in my head, Darth Vader, I always had, it's an idea I had for and I think I've seen it done before in a different way, like in a painting. But it's an idea I always wanted to do. And then I was like, well, let's do it one day.
That's really cool. And you're also a skater. We're going to get into that. But first, let's take a look at some of your other pieces that represent Chicago. Can we bring those up? Yeah, these prints. Let me see if we could zoom in a little bit more. These are really, really cool. You want to talk to us a little bit more about these pieces? Yeah,
so this is the Bulls logo, just made out of different Chicago architecture.
Oh my God, it is!
Yeah, it's funny because I like
so cool.
I like testing people because a lot of people I ask them what do they see, and they either right off the bat they're like, oh, the Bulls logo,
or the Bulls logo.
It takes some once you see it, you can't really unsee it. But it is funny. Some people notice it right off the bat, and some people it takes a minute, and then they're like, is that a bull? And then, so you got the bean as the nostrils.
That is really, I just liked it because of the Chicago all the symbolism and the way that the collages float. I did not realize that was even a bull. It's really neat.
So that's the bull. But yeah, they're all my own photos that I took. So, the 4 years I've been living in Chicago, I've just, that was another thing. I was never much of a photographer, but I had a decent camera. And, there's some stuff to take pictures of in a small town. But in Chicago, when I got here, I was like, oh my God, I can take pictures of buildings all day. And I love architecture. So
You're in the right place, my God.
I basically just started collecting. I would just go out every week and just take photos. And, at this point, all of a sudden, I have 8,000 photos of buildings in Chicago. So then whenever I want to make something like this, I just went through all my photos and was like, all right, do I have the Chicago Theater sign somewhere? I know I've taken pictures of that, so found that. So I kind of, at this point, have a library of photos that I can use when I want to make my art.
That's really, really cool. And you want to show us the next piece, too?
Yeah.
I really like this, Zoom. This is a little more colorful, right?
Yeah, and so this was a collaboration.
See the green. I like all the symmetry.
Yep. Yeah, I'm really into symmetry and different geometry and stuff. But this was a collaboration with my friend Akeem. He goes by Ace Life. So if you look closely, that was actually his painting. So I mean, it's subtle, but it's in there.
This
and
is
it wasn't
Hebrew stuff.
Yep, and that's Hebrew Brantley. So that's the sculpture that it was off Roosevelt. It got covered up because they built a building next to it. So you can't actually see that mural anymore.
Oh.
But that was his huge mural. I don't know what that is, 100 feet long. But I have him going vertically, the kid flying up. But it's actually, he was flying horizontally. And then, you have the bean in there. You got the L. This is the old Ferris wheel, actually, before they did the new Ferris wheel. So a lot of different Chicago stuff, the skyline. But,
Is that most of the work that you work on, like Chicago representing the city type work?
Yeah, that's kind
what I've
of
seen?
that's kind of what I'm doing now. I think like I came into finding my style, or I think I'm comfortable with like the art I want to make, and I kind of want to do it for different cities, but definitely Chicago first because I live here. I have all the photos, but down the road, I would love to, go somewhere, go to Detroit and photograph Detroit
Detroit is
for like,
awesome.
yeah, photograph Detroit for a week or two, and then make a bunch of art similar to this, but using Detroit's architecture, or any city. But I like the idea of kind of, your paintbrushes are the photos you take of that specific area, and then make art that kind of represents that area. But definitely that's, what I'm doing for Chicago first.
Woot woot. Let's talk about this piece.
Yeah.
A little different.
A little different.
I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
There we go.
So this piece, I call it Digital Sunset. And so this one is, it's hard to tell, but it was originally a picture of a sunset from my hometown in Spring Grove.
An actual photo.
Yeah, it was a photo. So, man, I should have brought what the original photo looked like so you could see the difference. But so it was a photo of the sunset. So that's where these colors came in. And then it got inverted into this weird pattern. And actually, if we looked at my website, I guess you could see what the original Photoshop piece looked like. But this is one of the second collages I did, because I always made art on, digital art. If you go to the gallery. For the longest time, I made my artwork and it was strictly digital. Like I would make prints of it and stuff, but I wasn't making collages. So I got drawn to the idea of like, well, if you make something on the computer, it's never one of a kind like a painting, because it could just be printed out. So how do you make something one of a kind? Well, my idea was, collage it. So yeah, if you look at that one, yeah, that's originally what it looked like. And right, it's still like similar, but it looks a lot different.
Yeah.
From that. But so that was
amazing.
a sunset.
And you still have the symmetry.
Yeah. So that's what it looked like in Photoshop, and so I had that, and that was printed out like that. Then I cut it up into little pieces and put it back together here, put paint on it, and then that's how it ended up. But
very, very cool. So I had the pleasure of meeting Joey through Joan Shank, who you met last season, and that's where I found Joey to be a skater, and that's how I met Joey. So we worked these events, and you're a skater and you do photography for the skating events. And then he introduces me to his art, and then he invites me to an art show, and I get there and I was like, oh wow, this is like a whole other world. And even though we've seen collages before, it was the Chicago symbolism and the symmetry that really stood out. And then just last week we had a chance to talk a little bit more at Cliff Dwellers and got to experience more art hands-on. And just like you were mentioning right now, the aestheticness of the printing and that, and how you've learned to manipulate it. So I don't know how to ask you this. Like, what goes through your mind when you find these, like, I need to stand out? Like, what process of elimination do you go through, or do you just... Because it seems like you actually think about what you're doing, not just, like, feeling it. Like, you feel it, but it seems like there's a lot of thought that goes behind it, too. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I do... it kind of evolves, and a lot of my artwork, like, is really focused on, like, the most amount of detail I can put in something without overwhelming people. Yeah, and I love, because I try to make
overkill.
Yeah, I try to make one of my friends described it as like meditation art, because he's like, well, you could look at it forever and you're not gonna see everything. There's so much to and once he said that, I was like, all right, I'm gonna kind of embrace that. So every piece I'm trying to put so much stuff, so hopefully the person looking at it, they can have it hanging on their wall for a year and keep noticing things.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, someone might look at something and be like, oh, that was just in your, like, artwork never just, you might have a vision in your head, it doesn't come straight out like that. It comes out differently, and then my artwork, I take a lot of passes on it, and that's how it evolves. Like, I might do something, I might come back to it a few weeks later, and then add something to it. And, like this piece, for instance, it didn't have the paint on it, was the finishing touch, but I showed it at one show without the paint, and like I thought the piece was done, and then one day I got home and I was looking at it and I was like, I think it's missing something. So it's like, yeah, and then now I think it's done, but who knows, maybe something else I'll be like, oh, it needs this. So a lot of times my artwork it evolves over a long period of time, and so it's not like it was something that just like came in one day's work. It actually, really took a few months or something and different passes of it to get to it.
Nice. And so you also skate. You want to talk to us a little bit about your skating background?
Yeah, I've been skateboarding since I was 11, so 27, so 16 years. And yeah, skateboarding, to me, it's an art form. People could consider it a sport, but
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, where did sorry. I just wanted to bring this up. When we invited Joan Shank on the show, and we were talking about the importance of extreme sports and how the difference between an extreme sport and like say these other sports where you have team sports. So the difference between a team sport and an extreme sport. And I was talking with Joey and I was like, it's a loner sport, right? That's why it's not supported. And Joey's like, it's actually an art form. I'm like, what? Well, they call it extreme sports. And you made these really, really interesting points about the way that ramps are visualized. Mm-hmm. You're looking at a ramp or you're looking at anything and you're trying to make a ramp out of it, right? You want to talk to us a little bit about that? That was really interesting.
Yeah, because a lot of people might not know how skateboarding evolved. Originally it was them trying to surf on concrete, right? Like the surfers in California. Yeah, concrete. And they had those little skateboards. If you ever saw like Dogtown and Z-Boys or whatever. But eventually they started skating backyard pools in California, like empty pools. So the pool wasn't designed to be skateboarded, but the skateboarders found out, oh, it's really fun to ride your skateboard in a pool. And that's kind of the whole mindset of skate. There wasn't skate parks. People didn't, skateboarders figured out, well, oh, that bump on the concrete, that's fun. And then eventually they built skate parks to model the things skaters had been skating. But yeah, my favorite thing, street skateboarding is where you go and you skateboard in the streets and you go around you look at the architecture, like, what can I do on this? Like, people see stairs just as stairs. You walk up the stairs, you use the handrail to make sure you don't fall. But skateboarders, they grind the handrail, they jump over the handrail, so they're constantly looking at everything as like potential skate obstacles. And that's the biggest thing to me is it's like, it just trains your mind to be creative because you're constantly looking at things and thinking, what could I do with my skateboard on this, even though it wasn't designed for that. So to me, that's what really makes it an art form. It's like, it really is. And then on top of that, people making up their own tricks, everything, like their style, like the way they do things. It really is, to me, more of an art form, like closer to music or something than it is to a sport like basketball or anything like that.
Yeah, and I hadn't really thought about that, maybe because I don't skate. It was hard for me to think about things that way, but you look at architecture and you make art, you look at architecture and you skate. So you're extremely inspired by architecture and all of your surroundings, right?
Yeah, no, I think skateboarding, like what I said, at least how it affected me and changed my mind and like let me see the world in a different way, it definitely affects the way I make art, where I look for things that other people might overlook, and that's a lot of my art's trying to show people, like, oh, you could look at it this way, like, did you ever think about, looking at it like this? Because I think a lot of things kind of get glossed over in our day-to-day life. We see, like, all the architecture in Chicago is beautiful, but, if you live in Chicago and you walk by it every day, after a while, you stop seeing it for what it is, or it kind of fades into the background.
Yeah, and I feel like Chicago has so much to offer, and it's constantly changing. That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't become boring to anybody that lives in the city.
Yeah, I would hope not.
Because how could it? There's
right.
just so much, and it's constantly evolving, and we're constantly evolving with it. So you started skating, and then just like in your hometown, and then you started skating back down here too, or like, why has art taken over more priority in your life than skating? Would you say?
Well, yeah. So I fell in love with skateboarding. Like I said, it started when I was like 11, and got pretty obsessed with it. Like just seeing, you start skateboarding, you can't do anything, but you watch the videos, and you're like, those guys can do all this stuff that looks like magic, and then you keep figuring it out. But I think I was you know, we always knew Chicago was like, that's where all the videos are made, and it looks so cool. They're skating through downtown and stuff. So I think I was maybe like 15 or 14 the first time we took the train down from like the suburbs and got to Chicago, and we're like, oh my God, and just got to skate around the city all day. And yeah, I mean, fell in love with it. And I think there's multiple summers where it was every single weekend. Saturday morning, would wake up, me and my friends would get on the train, get off at Union Station, get lost skating around Chicago all day, and then find our way back to Union Station at the end of the night, go home, and we would just do that every weekend until, you know, you start getting to know your way around. But that's
People
really...
don't realize how much you're training your mind while you're doing that.
Oh, yeah.
You're not just like
Yeah, and that's
making any trouble or causing anything.
Yep.
You know, you're just exercising your mind all day and your body. So it's
Oh, yeah.
physical. Definitely physical. I was just Gio's one of the skating partners that we skate with, or that they skate with, that we work with, and it's just amazing. I'm like, Gio, can you teach me? He teaches these kids. They're like toddlers sometimes, literally. And I'm like, you know, maybe I can learn. I remember when I was like in 6th grade or something ridiculous, and I was like, whoa, there's a lot of balance and
Yeah,
like
there
a lot
is.
of physical, like
and
everything.
that's the other coolest part to me about skateboarding is that it like teaches you persistence for sure, because
Oh my God! Yes, you see
you-
these kids. I mean, they get on and they're like tiny, and then they're scared, and then they don't want to leave, and mom's like, "Come on, we gotta go."
Yeah,
The
because
persistence.
yeah, it's
really-
I mean, that's everything. Because
really
no
cool.
one just gets on a skateboard and can just skateboard. It takes so many
You have
tries.
to fall.
Yeah, you have to fall a lot.
Bleed.
And, yeah,
Be
and
in
you're gonna
pain.
bleed. You're gonna have a lot of scabs. But it makes you realize over time, because there's so many times where I'm like, I'll never be able to do that trick. It seems so hard, and I would try for hours. And then, you know, fast forward a year and you're doing it. So, and you can look back on that, like, I never thought I'd be able to do this, but here I am. So to me, it's like an awesome life lesson too. It just teaches you really anything's possible, because you look at it, you're like, I'd never be able to do that trick on my skateboard. And then eventually you're able to do it. So it really is like a metaphor, like you can do anything. You know, if you put in the time and effort, you can figure it out.
It's really, really cool. Thank you for that. We only have a couple of minutes left, but I really wanted to tap into your music.
My
If we
music.
can.
Yeah.
So I know you're a thinker. You think, you analyze, you ponder,
Yep.
and you also were inspired by a lot of like oldies and hip hop and different kind of music. You want to talk to us about your music experience or your
Yeah. So I'm a musician. I sing.
closet musician? I was
A
like,
closet
what?
musician, right? I mean,
For
music's
now.
really why I moved to Chicago, and music has always been one of my biggest passions. And it started out like writing poetry and raps when I was in high school and stuff like that, and just kind of evolved and went down that road of you have to learn how to record yourself, and then eventually, you know, you got to learn how to make beats, you got to learn how to sing. So it really, you know, and I was living in the middle of nowhere, right, in a cornfield, hanging out with my friends, writing raps, pondering. But you just knew, like, yeah, Chicago's where you have to go. I mean, like, there's nothing out here. So that was kind of what I was like, I'm going to move to Chicago and figure out the music industry and stuff. But I knew I had a lot of work, I had a lot of learning to do. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to be like silently just work on stuff and just work and just keep getting better and keep meeting people and doing stuff. So I mean, that's what I've been doing the past 4 years I've been here. It's just silently, you know, closet music. just trying to get really
He's
good.
gonna come on and he's gonna be like, whoa.
And I guess
You can't talk to Joey no more. He's busy.
He's busy.
He's booked.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I'll have a lot of music released in the next couple months. And hopefully it'll be good, because I mean, it's been like
It is good. I heard it.
It's been
I
4
can't wait.
years put into it, but it's hip hop influence. It's also rock, pop. But I really, the way I sample, I kind of look at it the same way I make my Photoshop stuff. Sampling, I sample images in my artwork. I sample a lot of different songs, and I try to sample the oldies. I'm looking for, you know, Kanye sampled soul beats. I'm really trying to sample a lot of classic rock, because that's what my dad raised me on. So from
cool.
yeah.
We're really, really excited about that. I know we really have to go, but I just wanted to wrap up and thank you 1,000 times. I'm super grateful to have met you and to have you on, and I look forward to having you
Same.
back on singing or something.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, he tells me this after the performance art fundraiser. I'm like, Joey, are you kidding? I could have had you on. But thank you so much for being with us. We look forward to being with you again next week. Thank you.